I'm Jessica, 29, and I'll never forget finding my grandmother Evelyn sitting alone on her 75th birthday with just a small store-bought cake and unread cards. Meanwhile, my Instagram was flooding with photos of my family laughing on a cruise ship. The betrayal in her eyes shattered me. My grandmother raised me after Mom died, and this is how they repaid her? That day changed everything. Before I continue this story, where are you watching from today? Hit subscribe and like this video if you've ever stood up for someone who couldn't stand up for themselves. My grandmother Evelyn wasn't just family, she was my rock, my safe place. After my mother died from cancer when I was 8, Grandma Evelyn stepped in without hesitation. My biological father had never been in the picture, and my stepfather Thomas quickly made it clear he was more interested in my mother's life insurance than in raising her grieving daughter. Grandma's house became my sanctuary. A modest two-story colonial in a quiet neighborhood with a garden she tended with loving care. The walls were lined with family photos, my mother's high school graduation, my childhood ballet recitals, my brother Kyle's baseball games. She kept these memories alive, especially for me. Every morning before school, she'd have breakfast waiting, homemade pancakes on special days, always with a note of encouragement tucked under my plate. "You have your mother's strength," she'd say. "She's so proud of you, Jessie." Those words carried me through the darkest days of grief. When Thomas remarried just 11 months after Mom's death, Grandma Evelyn never spoke ill of him in front of me. Instead, she taught me dignity through her actions. She attended every school event, helped with every project, and worked part-time at the local library despite being retirement age just to ensure I could have dance lessons and summer camps. As I grew older, I recognized the sacrifices she made. The vacations she never took, the home improvements she delayed, all to provide stability for me. Even after I moved out for college, her home remained my true north. After graduating with my marketing degree, I took a position at a digital agency in Baltimore, about 3 hours from Grandma's house in rural Pennsylvania. The distance was difficult, but we spoke almost daily. I'd visit at least once a month, sometimes bringing my laundry like the college kid I no longer was, just to make her laugh and feel needed. Social media became our connection point between visits. I taught her to use Facebook so she could see photos of my new apartment, my work events, my friends. She wasn't particularly active online, but she faithfully liked every photo I posted, always commenting with slightly too many emojis and words in all caps. It was endearing. The first signs of family distance started subtly. My cousin Allison, Thomas's niece, began organizing family gatherings without including Grandma Evelyn. "It's just too far for her to drive," she'd say, though Grandma had been making the same 30-minute drive for years without complaint. Then came the family reunion cruise. 3 months ago, Allison created a group chat announcing a 5-day Caribbean cruise over the first week of May. "Family bonding time," she wrote, with sailing and sunshine emojis. I immediately noted the dates and responded, "That's the week of Grandma's 75th birthday. Is she coming?" There was a noticeable delay before Allison replied. "We thought this might be too much for someone her age. We'll celebrate with her before or after." Something felt off. I scrolled back through my calendar and remembered conversations with Thomas about Grandma's birthday months earlier. He had specifically asked about my availability that week. I had even requested those days off work initially, before a major client pitch was scheduled that required my presence. "I can't make the cruise, but I'll definitely be with Grandma for her birthday weekend," I wrote. Thomas called me directly after that message, unusual for him. "Jessica, this cruise is important for family unity. Your grandmother will understand if we celebrate her birthday another time." "I can't, Thomas. Work commitment," I said firmly. The truth was, even without the work conflict, I would have chosen Grandma's milestone birthday over a cruise. What I didn't fully understand then was how Thomas had been systematically isolating Grandma since my mother's death. Mom had been her only child, and after losing her, Thomas became the gatekeeper to her grandchildren, my brother Kyle and me. Kyle, younger by 3 years, had always been more susceptible to Thomas's influence. After I moved out, Kyle remained closer to home, working in Thomas's insurance office. The physical proximity translated to emotional control. Thomas paid for Kyle's apartment, his car, even his golf club membership. The strings attached were invisible but strong. During my monthly visits to Grandma, I noticed concerning patterns. She would mention calling Kyle, leaving messages that went unreturned. "He's just busy with work," she'd say, making excuses for him. Her landline phone bill, which she accidentally left on the kitchen counter during one visit, showed dozens of calls to Thomas's home and Kyle's cell, many lasting less than a minute or going unanswered. Yet when I asked Kyle about it, he seemed genuinely confused. Thomas said Grandma was having memory problems and we shouldn't burden her with too many visits, he told me. He said her doctor recommended limiting stimulation. This was news to me. Grandma had never mentioned memory issues or doctor's recommendations. In fact, she remained sharp as ever, remembering details about my coworkers and projects that even I sometimes forgot. 2 weeks before her birthday, my unease grew. Thomas posted photos of new luggage with cruise tags. Kyle shared excited messages about shore excursions. My Aunt Patricia, Thomas's sister, posted about new swimsuits for the trip. Yet no one mentioned Grandma's upcoming milestone. I called Grandma more frequently that week, careful not to mention the cruise in case she didn't know. Her voice sounded normal, excited about her birthday. Thomas said they might come by, she mentioned casually. Nothing fancy, just cake and coffee. That didn't align with the elaborate cruise plans I was seeing. Something was very wrong, but I couldn't yet see the full picture of betrayal that was about to come into focus. The week of Grandma's birthday arrived with the chaos typical of agency life. Our team was finalizing a pitch for a potential client worth millions to the company. As project lead, I was pulling 12-hour days, surviving on vending machine snacks and determination. May 7th, Grandma's actual birthday, fell on a Wednesday. I had planned to call her during my lunch break and drive up Friday evening for a weekend celebration. I had already arranged for a local bakery to deliver her favorite lemon cake and ordered a digital photo frame preloaded with family pictures as her gift. At 10 a.m., my phone buzzed with a notification. Allison had posted a photo, Thomas, Kyle, Aunt Patricia, and several other family members on the cruise ship's deck, cocktails raised in a toast. The caption read, "Let the family reunion begin. Hashtag cruising with the family, hashtag best week ever." My stomach dropped. They were actually going through with it, abandoning Grandma on her 75th birthday for a vacation. I tried to focus on my presentation notes, but the betrayal kept pulling my attention away. By noon, I couldn't wait any longer and stepped out to call Grandma. The phone rang until voicemail picked up. "Hi Grandma, it's Jessica. Just calling to wish you a happy birthday. I love you so much and can't wait to see you this weekend. Call me back when you can." I tried again at 2 p.m. No answer. By 4 p.m., with 3 unanswered calls, worry had replaced anger. It wasn't like Grandma to miss calls, especially on her birthday. I tried Kyle's phone, forgetting momentarily that he'd be at sea with limited service. His voicemail was full. At 5:30 p.m., as my team was celebrating the successful pitch presentation, I slipped away to call Beverly, Grandma's next-door neighbor. We weren't close, but I had her number for emergencies. "Beverly, hi, this is Jessica, Evelyn's granddaughter. I've been trying to reach my grandmother all day. Have you seen her?" There was a pause before Beverly answered, her voice tight with what sounded like controlled anger. "Yes, I saw Evelyn earlier. She's home alone, Jessica. On her birthday. I brought over some flowers, but she seemed quiet." "Alone?" Thomas and the others didn't visit before leaving for their cruise. Another pause. "Cruise? Is that where they are?" Evelyn mentions something about Thomas calling to say they couldn't make it today because something came up. She didn't mention a cruise. My blood ran cold. They hadn't even told her. They had simply abandoned her on her milestone birthday without explanation. "Beverly, I'm leaving now. I'll be there in 3 hours. Could you please check on her again?" "Of course, dear. I'll bring over some dinner." I didn't remember packing my laptop or telling my boss I had a family emergency. The next clear memory was being on the highway, tears streaming down my face as I repeatedly punched the steering wheel at every red light, cursing Thomas's name. The drive that normally took 3 hours stretched to almost 4 with rush hour traffic. Every minute felt like torture as I imagined Grandma sitting alone on her special day, wondering why her family had forgotten her. It was after 10 p.m. when I finally pulled into her driveway. The house was dark except for a soft light in the living room. I used my key and entered quietly, calling out, "Grandma? It's Jessica." I found her in the kitchen, sitting at the small breakfast table. Before her sat a single-serving cake from the grocery store, the kind with too sweet frosting and waxy decorations. A single candle had been lit and extinguished. A few cards stood unopened nearby. "Jessica." She looked up surprised. "What are you doing here?" "I thought you had that big presentation." I rushed to her, kneeling beside her chair and wrapping my arms around her slender frame. "I finished it. I couldn't miss your birthday. I'm so sorry I'm late." She patted my hair the way she had when I was small. "Oh, sweetheart, you didn't have to drive all this way. It's just another day." But it wasn't just another day. It was her 75th birthday, a milestone she had reached without her daughter, abandoned by her son-in-law and grandson, sitting alone with a store-bought cake. "Did Thomas call you?" I asked carefully, pulling back to look at her face. Something flickered in her eyes, hurt quickly masked by practiced acceptance. "Yes, this morning. Something came up with work," he said. "They'll come next weekend instead." She straightened a paper napkin. "These things happen. People get busy." "Grandma," I said gently, "they're on a cruise. A family reunion cruise. They've been planning it for months." Her hand trembled slightly as she smoothed the tablecloth. "Oh? Well, I'm sure they meant to tell me. Probably didn't want me to feel bad about not being included." But the slight quiver in her voice betrayed her. She had known, or at least suspected, and was trying to protect me from her pain. "Did they invite you?" I pressed. She looked away. "Not directly, no. Thomas mentioned a family trip some time ago, but said it would be too strenuous for someone my age. I didn't realize it was this week." I bit back my rage. "Did they know it was your birthday week when they planned it?" Her silence was answer enough. "Let's cut this cake," she said finally, reaching for a knife. "It's actually quite good. I had a slice earlier." The image of my grandmother blowing out a single candle alone, then cutting herself a slice of grocery store cake on her 75th birthday, broke something in me. In that moment, I made a silent vow. Thomas would never hurt her again. Not while I was alive. "I'm staying the weekend," I announced, taking the knife and cutting us each a slice. "And we're going to celebrate properly. Tomorrow I'm taking you to Antonio's for that lobster ravioli you love." "Jessica, you don't need to." "I want to," I interrupted. "Now, open your cards. I want to see who remembered." As we sat eating cake past midnight, Grandma carefully opening each card, I noticed something else. Among the handful of cards from her church friends and former coworkers, there wasn't a single one from Thomas, Kyle, or any of the cruising family members. The betrayal was complete. I woke early the next morning on Grandma's pull-out sofa, the same one I'd slept on countless times growing up. The familiar scent of coffee and cinnamon wafted from the kitchen. For a moment, it felt like any other visit, until the memory of last night crashed back. Grandma was already dressed in one of her neat blouses and slacks, hair perfectly combed, making French toast as if nothing was wrong. This was her way: carry on, don't dwell, put others first. "I called work and took a few days off," I announced over breakfast. "I thought we could go through those old photo albums you've been wanting to organize." Her face brightened. "That would be lovely, Jessica. They're gathering dust in the study." The study had once been my grandfather's domain before he passed 15 years ago. Now it served as Grandma's bill-paying station and storage for family mementos. We spent the morning sifting through photographs. My mother as a toddler with pigtails, Grandma and Grandpa's honeymoon in Niagara Falls, my awkward middle school years with braces and unfortunate bangs. "You look so much like your mother," Grandma said softly, touching a photo of Mom at my age. "She would be so proud of the woman you've become." As we organized the photos chronologically, I noticed how Thomas began appearing less and less in family pictures after Mom died, and how Kyle's appearances grew rarer in recent years. The visual evidence of their gradual withdrawal was stark. Around noon, Grandma mentioned needing to pay some bills. While I'm doing that, would you mind organizing that stack of papers on the desk? Just sort by date if you could. The stack was more like a mountain of documents: insurance policies, property tax statements, utility bills, and bank statements. As I sorted, certain papers caught my attention. A property deed for a lakeside cabin I'd visited as a child but had forgotten about. Insurance policies with substantial values. Investment statements showing a surprisingly healthy portfolio. Grandma, I called. I didn't realize you still owned the lake house. She looked up from her checkbook. Oh yes, your grandfather left it to me. Thomas has been using it for years. He takes clients there for fishing trips. I frowned. Do they pay rent? Goodness, no. They're family. Thomas handles the property taxes and maintenance as a thank you. At least he's supposed to. She hesitated. I received a notice last month that the taxes were delinquent. When I called Thomas, he said it was an oversight and he'd take care of it. Further digging revealed more oversights. Maintenance bills for the lake house charged to Grandma's accounts. A home equity line of credit on her primary residence that she only vaguely remembered signing. Withdrawals from her investment account labeled as family loans. Then I found an email printout that made my blood boil. It was from Thomas to Allison, dated 3 months ago. Cruise confirmed for May 5th to 10th. Don't mention to Evelyn it's during her birthday. She's been asking about celebration plans. I'll handle her expectations. Remember, we need to move forward with the lake property plans before summer. She's still hesitating about signing the transfer papers. Next to this was a brochure for a modest retirement community, with notes in Thomas's handwriting calculating how much equity from Grandma's house would remain after purchasing a small one-bedroom unit. Grandma, I said carefully, has Thomas been asking you to sign over the lake house to him? She stiffened, then slowly nodded. He says it makes sense for estate planning purposes. To avoid probate later. She twisted her wedding ring nervously. I've been considering it, but something feels wrong about signing away property your grandfather specifically left for any future great-grandchildren. As we talked more, the full picture emerged. Thomas had been systematically pressuring Grandma to liquidate assets and downsize, ostensibly to simplify her life, but actually to gain control of her property before she died. The lake house alone was worth over $400,000 in today's market, situated on prime waterfront real estate. More disturbing were the revelations about Thomas's financial situation. Grandma reluctantly admitted she had paid off his credit card debt twice in recent years. He helped me so much after your mother passed, she explained. I felt I owed him. But she hadn't owed him anything. Thomas had married my mother knowing she had 2 young children. After her death, he had effectively abandoned me to Grandma's care while keeping Kyle under his influence. And now he was manipulating her finances while isolating her from family support. There's something else, Grandma said quietly, opening a drawer and removing a folder. I didn't want to worry you. Inside were medical records from a doctor's visit 3 months earlier. Mild hypertension, early arthritis, and concerning blood work requiring follow-up tests. Thomas was supposed to drive me to the follow-up appointment last month. He canceled the morning of, said he had an emergency at work. I couldn't get another appointment until next week. I thought of Thomas's social media posts from that exact day, a golf outing with clients, all smiles and expensive clubs. No emergency in sight. Grandma, I said, taking her hands, when was the last time the family spent a holiday with you? Christmas? Thanksgiving? She looked away. Thomas usually has other commitments. Call came for about an hour last Christmas before heading to Thomas's house for dinner. The isolation had been systematic and deliberate. By keeping other family members away and controlling Kyle's access to her, Thomas had ensured no one would notice his financial manipulation. The cruise was just the most blatant example of their exclusion strategy. Why didn't you tell me it was this bad? I asked gently. Tears finally broke through her carefully maintained composure. I didn't want to come between you and your family. I know how much you care about Kyle. And I keep hoping Thomas will remember how much your mother loved him, how she would want him to treat her mother. I held her as she cried, this woman who had never put herself first, who had raised me with love when she should have been enjoying her retirement, who had suffered in silence rather than cause family conflict. This stops now, I promised her. You are not alone anymore. That evening, after Grandma went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table making notes. The cruise would return in 3 days. I needed a plan before the family reappeared with their excuses and manipulation. First thing the next morning, I called Grandma's neighbor Beverly and invited her for coffee. A retired nurse in her 60s, Beverly had lived next door for 20 years and had a protective streak toward Grandma. I've been worried about Evelyn for months, Beverly confirmed, stirring her coffee in Grandma's sunny kitchen. Thomas used to visit weekly after your mother passed, then monthly. Now I barely see him. When he does come, he leaves with paperwork, never stays long. Beverly described watching Grandma sit alone during holidays, seeing her call for rides to doctor appointments because Thomas was too busy, noticing how she would check the mailbox eagerly on her birthday and seem disappointed. Last Christmas was the last straw for me, Beverly said firmly. I brought over cookies and found her eating a frozen dinner alone. Said the family dinner had been rescheduled, but I saw their cars at Thomas's house when I drove past later. I should have said something sooner. Armed with Beverly's observations, I made my next call to Natalie, a law school friend who specialized in elder law. I explained the situation while Grandma was taking her afternoon nap. This sounds like textbook elder financial exploitation, Jess, Natalie said gravely. The isolation, the pressure to sign over assets, the misuse of her funds. It's unfortunately common, even within families. Natalie explained that while not all of Thomas's actions were clearly illegal, there were definite ethical violations and potentially actionable financial misconduct. First step, document everything, she advised. Bank statements, property records, medical appointments he's canceled, evidence of isolation. Next, secure her important documents and consider changing account access. Does Thomas have power of attorney? To my relief, Grandma had never signed power of attorney over to anyone. However, Thomas was listed as a secondary signer on one checking account for emergencies. Natalie helped me draft a plan to protect Grandma's assets and document the pattern of exploitation. That afternoon, Grandma and I visited her bank where she removed Thomas from her accounts and added me as her financial advocate. We scheduled appointments with her doctor, an elder law attorney Natalie recommended, and her financial advisor. Are you sure about this? Grandma asked as we left the bank. I don't want to cause trouble. The only one causing trouble is Thomas, I assured her. This isn't about punishment, it's about protecting you. That evening, as we prepared dinner together, I carefully approached the most difficult question. Grandma, when the family returns, we need to confront them about what they've been doing. How do you want to handle it? She was quiet for a long moment, methodically chopping carrots. I've spent years avoiding conflict, Jessica. After your mother died, I was so afraid of losing connection to you and Kyle that I let Thomas set all the terms. She set down the knife. I'm not afraid anymore. They need to know that what they've done is wrong. Her strength nearly brought me to tears. This woman, who had raised me with such love, was finally ready to stand up for herself. Later that night, I decided to test the waters with a social media post, a direct challenge to the family's narrative. I posted a photo of Grandma and me at dinner with the caption, celebrating this amazing woman's 75th birthday. Grateful for her love, strength, and the values she taught me about putting family first, real family values that don't involve abandoning someone on their milestone birthday. Some people could learn a lot from her example. Within minutes, my phone exploded with notifications. Allison sent a private message. Why are you trying to make us look bad? We're going to celebrate when we get back. Don't be so dramatic. Aunt Patricia commented publicly, we had this cruise planned for months. We'll celebrate when we return. Thomas didn't respond publicly, but sent a terse text. You're creating drama unnecessarily. Family matters should stay private. Most surprising was a late-night call from Kyle. I stepped outside to take it, not wanting to disturb Grandma. Jess. His voice sounded strained. Is Grandma okay? Your post. I didn't realize it was her actual birthday when we left. How could you not know, Kyle? Her birthday has been May 7th for your entire life. Thomas said it was the following week, he said weakly. He told us he'd checked with her, and she was fine with us celebrating later because some of her church friends were taking her out on her actual birthday. That's a lie, I said flatly. She sat alone with a grocery store cake. No one called except me. No one sent gifts except her neighbor and church group. The silence on the line stretched until Kyle spoke again, his voice smaller than I'd heard since we were children. I messed up, didn't I? I've been letting Thomas make all these decisions, telling me Grandma was fine, that she understood. She wasn't fine, Kyle. And it's not just the birthday. Thomas has been trying to get her to sign over properties, loaning himself money from her accounts, isolating her so no one would notice. His sharp intake of breath told me this was news to him. I didn't know, Jess. I swear. He controls everything. My job, my apartment. I know that sounds pathetic, but ever since Dad died, Dad? I interrupted. Thomas is not our dad. He's the man who married our mom, then abandoned her children when she died. You're right, Kyle said after a moment. I don't know why I called him that. Listen, the ship docks on Sunday. I want to come straight to Grandma's. Alone. Before Thomas and the others. Is that okay? We made plans for Kyle to arrive early Sunday morning. After ending the call, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe my brother wasn't completely lost to Thomas's influence. The next 2 days were spent fortifying Grandma's position. We gathered all important documents, changed passwords on her online accounts, and prepared a clear record of Thomas's financial misconduct. Natalie connected us with a family mediator who could be present for the confrontation if needed. By Saturday night, Grandma seemed transformed. Standing straighter, speaking more confidently, she helped me prepare her house for the upcoming confrontation. We baked her famous apple pie, not as a welcome for the returning family, but as armor. In her kitchen, making her recipes, she was reminding herself of her own strength. Whatever happens tomorrow, she said as we washed the dishes, thank you for seeing what was happening when I couldn't admit it to myself. I hugged her tightly. You taught me to stand up for what's right, Grandma. I'm just following your example. Sunday morning dawned bright and clear. Kyle arrived as promised, alone, just after 9 a.m. He looked different somehow, the confident swagger Thomas had instilled replaced by the more authentic, slightly awkward bearing of the brother I remembered. The moment he saw Grandma, he broke down. I'm so sorry, he said, embracing her. I didn't know about your birthday, about any of it. I should have checked instead of just believing what I was told. Grandma held him, patting his back. You're here now. That's what matters. We spent an hour with Kyle, showing him the evidence we'd gathered. His shock seemed genuine as he reviewed bank statements showing Thomas's withdrawals, the emails about deliberately scheduling the cruise during Grandma's birthday, and the retirement community brochures Thomas had been pressuring her to consider. He told me you wanted to downsize, Kyle said, bewildered. That you found the house too much to maintain. This house is my home, Grandma said firmly. Your grandfather built the back porch with his own hands. Your mother's height marks are still on the kitchen door frame. Why would I want to leave? Kyle nodded slowly. I believe you. And I'm staying when they arrive. They're coming at noon. Thomas organized a surprise belated birthday lunch for you. How convenient, I muttered. We spent the next 2 hours preparing. Grandma changed into a blue dress that brought out her eyes, applied light makeup, and sat in her favorite armchair like a queen awaiting subjects. Kyle and I positioned ourselves strategically, me beside Grandma, Kyle near the door. Beverly waited next door, on call if needed. At 12:15, we heard cars pulling into the driveway. Voices, laughter, the sound of doors slamming. Then the doorbell rang. Kyle opened the door to reveal Thomas, Aunt Patricia, Allison, and 3 other family members, arms laden with gift bags and a large cake box. Surprise, they called out, faces frozen in practiced smiles that faltered when they spotted me sitting beside Grandma. Jessica? What are you doing here? Thomas asked, his voice sharp despite his attempt at a jovial tone. We thought you had work. I did, I replied calmly. I rearranged it when I discovered Grandma was completely alone on her actual birthday. An uncomfortable silence fell as they filed into the living room, setting down gifts and the cake. Aunt Patricia recovered first, swooping in to kiss Grandma's cheek. Happy belated birthday, Evelyn. We brought your favorite cake from Wilson's Bakery. That's thoughtful, Grandma said evenly. Though my favorite has always been lemon from Antonio's, not chocolate from Wilson's. Another awkward pause. Allison laughed nervously. Well, chocolate is everyone's favorite, right? The cruise was amazing, Grandma Evelyn. You would have been bored though, so much walking and sun. Actually, Grandma replied, I've been walking 3 miles daily with Beverly. And I enjoyed gardening in the sun just yesterday. Thomas stepped forward, clearly trying to take control of the situation. Let's not dwell on the cruise. We're here now to celebrate your birthday properly, Evelyn. Kyle, help me bring in the gifts from the car. The gifts are all here, Kyle said, not moving from his position. And I think we need to talk about why we're really here. Thomas's face darkened. What's going on? Jessica, have you been filling your grandmother's head with nonsense? No nonsense, I said, opening a folder on my lap. Just documented facts. Like this email where you specifically planned the cruise during Grandma's birthday and instructed everyone not to tell her. Allison gasped. Aunt Patricia looked away guiltily. Or these bank statements showing $47,000 in loans you've taken from Grandma's accounts in the past 3 years. Thomas's fake smile disappeared completely. Evelyn agreed to help with some temporary financial situations. That's a private matter between us. Was it also a private matter when you tried to get her to sign over the lake house? I continued. Or when you started shopping for retirement communities without her knowledge? I was looking out for her future. Thomas snapped. Someone needs to make these difficult decisions. She can't manage alone. I am not an incompetent child, Thomas. Grandma's voice was quiet but firm. I've managed my household and finances successfully for 15 years since my husband died. I raised Jessica when you decided your new marriage was more important than your stepchildren. That's not fair, Thomas began, but Kyle interrupted. It's completely fair, Thomas. I've seen the evidence. You've been systematically isolating Grandma and trying to control her assets. Thomas turned on Kyle, fury replacing the mask of concern. After everything I've done for you? Your job, your apartment, your car. Who do you think provided those? You did, Kyle acknowledged. And you've used them to control me, to keep me from seeing what you were doing to Grandma. The confrontation escalated as Thomas realized he was losing control. He pointed at me accusingly. You've always been troublesome, Jessica. Never grateful for anything. Now you've turned your brother and grandmother against me with your wild accusations. They're not accusations, I replied calmly. They're documented facts. Facts we've shared with Grandma's attorney, her financial advisor, and her bank. You had no right. Thomas shouted, mask completely dropped now. Family matters stay within the family. Exactly, Grandma said, standing slowly. Family. You stopped acting like family to me the day my daughter died. You tolerated me only as long as you thought you could benefit from my assets. Thomas's face flushed dark red. This is ridiculous. I don't have to listen to this. He turned to the others. Let's go. They clearly don't appreciate our efforts. Aunt Patricia hesitated. Thomas, maybe we should talk about this. If what they're saying is true. It's not true, he snapped. They're exaggerating normal family matters to create drama. Are you with me or not? The room divided in that moment. Allison and 2 others quickly moved to Thomas's side. Aunt Patricia and one cousin remained rooted in place, looking uncertainly between the 2 factions. Before you decide, Carl said to the wavering family members, you should know that Thomas told me Grandma's birthday was next week, not during the cruise. He deliberately lied to keep us away from her. Aunt Patricia's eyes widened. She turned to Thomas. Is that true? You told me Evelyn knew about the cruise dates and was fine with it. Thomas didn't answer, which was answer enough. He grabbed his coat and headed for the door, pausing only to deliver a final threat. You'll regret this, Evelyn. All of you will. This family worked because I made it work. You'll see. The door slammed behind Thomas, Allison, and the others who followed him. The house fell silent except for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Aunt Patricia moved first, coming to sit beside Grandma. Evelyn, I had no idea. I swear. Thomas handled all the arrangements, told us everything was coordinated with you. I believe you, Patricia, Grandma said gently. But I need to ask, why didn't you call me yourself? Check in directly? We've known each other for 30 years. Patricia's eyes filled with tears. I don't know. It was easier to let Thomas handle things. I got comfortable with the arrangement. She took Grandma's hand. That's no excuse. I should have been a better sister-in-law, a better friend. As the afternoon progressed, the truth emerged in layers. Thomas had told different stories to different family members, controlling the narrative and keeping everyone compartmentalized. Some had been manipulated, others had been willfully blind, finding it easier to enjoy the cruise than question the convenient story that Grandma was fine with celebrating later. By evening, new alliances had formed. Patricia and her son stayed for dinner, genuinely connecting with Grandma for the first time in years. Plans were made for regular visits, real inclusion. Kyle committed to moving out of the apartment Thomas controlled, accepting my offer to stay with me temporarily while he found his footing. As the last visitors left, Grandma sat between Kyle and me on the porch swing, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. It wasn't the birthday celebration I expected, she said thoughtfully, but it might be the most important one of my life. I squeezed her hand, recognizing the truth in her words. Sometimes family isn't preserved by avoiding conflict, but by having the courage to face it head-on. The weeks following the confrontation brought both challenges and healing. True to his nature, Thomas didn't surrender control quietly. The day after our confrontation, Grandma received a certified letter from an attorney claiming she was in breach of verbal agreements regarding the lake house and demanding repayment of business investments Thomas had allegedly made. Natalie, now officially retained as Grandma's attorney, responded with a detailed accounting of the money Thomas had taken from Grandma's accounts, the property taxes he'd failed to pay despite claiming responsibility, and documentation of his pattern of elder financial exploitation. The implied threat of a counter-lawsuit quickly silenced Thomas's legal maneuverings. The family, however, remained fractured. Thomas worked diligently to maintain his version of events, telling extended family and community members that Grandma was experiencing memory issues and that I was manipulating her for financial gain. Some believed him, including Allison, who stopped speaking to Kyle and blocked me on social media. It hurts, Grandma admitted one evening as we reviewed the fallout. Some of these people have been in my life for decades. To have them believe I'm incompetent or that you're taking advantage of me. The truth will eventually show, I assured her, though my own heart ached at the divisions. The people who matter will see through his lies. Gradually, that prediction proved accurate. Aunt Patricia became an unexpected ally, quietly correcting the record when she heard Thomas's version being repeated. Kyle's decision to move out of Thomas's sphere of influence and find independent work spoke volumes to family members who had witnessed Thomas's control over him for years. Meanwhile, we focused on rebuilding Grandma's life and security. Working with her financial advisor, we created a proper estate plan that reflected her wishes, not Thomas's manipulations. The lake house was placed in a trust that would eventually benefit all family members equally, including Thomas's children, despite his behavior. Your mother would want them included, Grandma said firmly. Children shouldn't pay for their parents' mistakes. Her generosity of spirit humbled me. Even after everything Thomas had done, she refused to respond with vindictiveness. The most dramatic change came in Grandma herself. Free from Thomas's subtle undermining of her confidence, she blossomed. She joined a senior hiking group, took up watercolor painting, and even started dating a kind widower from her church. I forgot who I was, she confessed one day as we worked in her garden. After your grandfather died, then your mother, I started seeing myself only as someone's widow, someone's mother, someone's grandmother. I let Thomas make me feel dependent when I've actually been independent my whole life. My own life shifted too. After discussing options with my agency, I arranged to work remotely 3 days a week, allowing me to spend more time near Grandma while maintaining my career. I rented a small apartment 20 minutes from her house, close enough for regular visits, but respecting her newfound independence. Kyle's transformation was perhaps the most profound. Without Thomas's controlling influence, my brother rediscovered his own voice. He found a job at a local marketing firm, less prestigious than Thomas's insurance company, but truly his. He started therapy to process the years of manipulation and rebuild his self-confidence. Most importantly, he reconnected with Grandma, coming for Sunday dinners and helping with house projects. During one such visit, he broke down again. "I abandoned you both," he said, tears streaming down his face as he fixed Grandma's leaking faucet. "After Mom died, I was so desperate for a father figure that I let Thomas reshape me into someone I'm not." "You were a child," Grandma reminded him gently. "Children seek safety and approval." Thomas offered both, but with invisible strings attached. 3 months after the confrontation, Thomas made one final attempt to regain control. He arrived unannounced at Grandma's house, finding her and me planting fall bulbs in the front garden. "Evelyn, we need to talk privately," he announced, ignoring my presence. "This family situation has gotten out of hand." Grandma straightened, garden trowel still in her soil-covered hand. "Thomas, anything you have to say can be said in front of Jessica." "This is exactly the problem," he said, voice rising. "She's turned you against me, against your own family." "Jessica is my family," Grandma replied calmly. "So is Kyle. You're the one who tried to isolate me from them." When Thomas realized his persuasion wasn't working, his approach darkened. "You'll regret this, Evelyn. I've been patient, but this ends now. I'll contest any will you create. I'll tell everyone about your memory problems. I'll make sure Kyle never works in this town again." The threats, spoken in plain view of two neighbors working in their yards, proved to be Thomas's final mistake. One neighbor recorded the exchange on her phone, concerned for our safety. When Thomas refused to leave after being asked repeatedly, the police were called. The resulting police report became the foundation for a restraining order, granted after a tense court hearing where multiple witnesses, including Kyle and Aunt Patricia, testified about Thomas's pattern of control and manipulation. The judge's ruling was unequivocal. Based on the evidence presented, including financial records, witness testimony, and the respondent's own statements, this court finds clear evidence of attempted elder exploitation and ongoing harassment. The restraining order is granted for a period of 1 year, subject to extension if necessary. Watching Thomas leave the courtroom, shoulders slumped in defeat, I felt no triumph. Only relief that Grandma was finally protected and sadness for the family bonds that had been irreparably broken. As we left the courthouse, Grandma took a deep breath of the fresh autumn air. "It feels like I can breathe properly for the first time in years," she said, squeezing my hand. "Thank you for helping me find my voice again." 1 year later, we gathered in Grandma's backyard to celebrate her 76th birthday. The contrast to her previous birthday couldn't have been more striking. The garden bloomed with early May flowers. Tables decorated with balloons and streamers dotted the lawn. A professional photographer captured candid moments of genuine joy. Kyle manned the grill, confidently flipping burgers while chatting with Grandma's hiking group friends. Aunt Patricia and her family arranged platters of food on the buffet table. Beverly supervised the spectacular 3-tier lemon cake from Antonio's that stood as the centerpiece. Grandma herself looked transformed. The subtle stoop that had begun to shape her posture was gone, replaced by confident, straight shoulders. Her hair, which she'd begun coloring again, was styled in a modern bob that took years off her appearance. Most noticeable was the light in her eyes, the spark of a woman fully engaged in her life. "Someone looks happy," I said, joining her as she greeted guests. "I am happy," she replied, squeezing my hand. Truly happy, not just pretending to be for everyone else's sake. The year had brought healing I couldn't have imagined. That night I found her alone with a store-bought cake. Our family had reconfigured, shedding toxic connections and strengthening healthier ones. Thomas remained absent from our lives, still telling his version of events to anyone who would listen, but his power to harm us had evaporated. Kyle had flourished, moving into his own apartment and receiving a promotion at work. More importantly, he'd reclaimed his authentic self, the kind, thoughtful brother I remembered from childhood. "You know what's weird?" he said later as we helped clean up after the party. "I spent so many years trying to please Thomas, trying to be the son he wanted, that I forgot who I actually am. It took losing his approval to find myself again." My own life had transformed as well. The remote work arrangement had proven so successful that my agency made it permanent. I'd begun dating Scott, a kind veterinarian I met while volunteering at an animal shelter, Grandma's suggestion for productive healing, as she called it. Most significantly, I'd found a new purpose. Inspired by Grandma's experience, I started a community program connecting seniors with college students for regular visits and practical support. The program, which we named Bridge Generations, had already expanded to 3 nearby communities. "Your mother would be so proud of you," Grandma said as we sat on her porch that evening, watching fireflies emerge in the twilight. "Not just for standing up for me, but for creating something positive from a painful experience." "I learned that from you," I told her truthfully. "You never became bitter, even when you had every right to be." She considered this, rocking gently in her porch swing. "Bitterness is a heavy load to carry. I decided long ago that forgiveness doesn't mean allowing mistreatment to continue. It means refusing to let someone else's actions poison your own heart." Her wisdom stopped me short. "Is that why you included Thomas's children in the Lake House Trust?" "Because you've forgiven him." "Forgiveness is a process," she said carefully. "I'm not there yet with Thomas. But his children shouldn't suffer for his choices." Breaking cycles of harm sometimes means making difficult choices that your hurt feelings might disagree with. In the months that followed, Grandma's philosophy influenced other decisions. When Thomas's mother, my step-grandmother, fell ill, Grandma was the one who suggested we visit her in the hospital, despite knowing Thomas might be there. "Family is complicated," she acknowledged. "But compassion never is." We didn't encounter Thomas during that visit, but the experience reinforced what Grandma had been teaching us all along. Boundaries protect us from harm, but walls isolate us from growth. As summer turned to fall, Grandma surprised us by enrolling in community college classes, art history and creative writing. "I always wanted to finish my degree," she explained. "Why wait any longer?" Watching her embrace new experiences with enthusiasm inspired others. Kyle began taking photography classes. Aunt Patricia, previously defined by her role as Thomas's sister, discovered a passion for gardening and started a small landscaping business. The ripple effects extended beyond our immediate circle. Several seniors from Grandma's church joined her in taking classes. 2 women from her hiking group left unhealthy relationships after witnessing her transformation. The Bridge Generations program connected over 100 seniors with student visitors, combating isolation and building community. Scott integrated seamlessly into our reconfigured family, respecting Grandma as the matriarch she was and appreciating the values that bound us together. When he proposed 6 months later, Grandma was the first person I called. "Bring him to Sunday dinner," she said warmly. "I want to get to know the man who makes my granddaughter so happy." That Sunday, sitting around Grandma's dining table with Kyle, Scott, and several neighbors turned friends, I reflected on how drastically our lives had changed since that lonely birthday just 18 months earlier. "A toast," Grandma said, raising her glass. "To family, not just the one we're born into, but the one we choose and create with love, respect, and honesty." As glasses clinked around the table, I added silently, "and to the courage to stand up for those we love, even when it's difficult." Especially when it's difficult. Later that evening, as Scott and I prepared to leave, Grandma pulled me aside. "Jessica," she said, taking my hands in hers, "I want you to know something. That night you found me alone on my birthday was one of the lowest moments of my life. But it led to one of the highest, reclaiming my power, rebuilding our family on healthier terms, watching you and Kyle become the amazing adults your mother always knew you would be." She looked out at the sunset, painting the sky in breathtaking colors, a gentle smile on her face. Sometimes the greatest gift is having someone believe in your worth when others have made you doubt it. You did that for me, and I'll never forget it. As we embraced, I realized the true lesson of our journey. Family isn't defined by shared genetics or legal ties, but by who shows up when you're sitting alone with a store-bought cake. It's defined by those who rush to your side when others turn away, who help you rebuild when your foundation has been shaken. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between family peace and standing up for what's right? I hope our story gives you courage if you're facing a similar situation. Remember that true family supports, respects, and protects one another. Please like this video if our story resonated with you, subscribe for more real-life experiences, and share with someone who might need to hear this message. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the family we create is stronger than the one we're born into.